Yeah, the weather's getting cooler. I'm starting to do some more work on the magnets. The trick seems to be to put the magnets in the centre of the wheel, not on the edge of the wheel. So look forward to something coming in April with that, man. I think you'll be impressed. I think we're going to crack it, fellas. Okay. As with the weather, as I said, it seems to be cooling down, and they're predicting the coldest winter on record here. So that's since records were kept in 1839. Well, that's what they're predicting, so I don't know how cold that's going to be. The last time the water froze on the Adelaide Plain was the year John Lennon got shot, which was 1980. So I'm assuming if it's going to be the coldest, it's going to get colder than 0 degrees on the Adelaide Plain then. So anyway, I'm 4 right, 3 down in darkness. In case you're wondering, it's doing these bowlers like chasing the dragon's tail. It really is. You know, you never know what's going to. I think we're going to need a better theory, fellas. But I had come to something though. Looking at this one from the bottle so far, what it is suggesting, if I get my little, it's suggesting that salt acts like zinc and zinc acts like salt, which is very strange indeed. So I've gone back to ideas about salinity and so on and so forth. So I'm testing those out at the moment and see if we can crack it. We've had one success with the cotton wool here, but I don't know if can you see that, fellas? I'm probably going to have to go spot culling on this. Hang on, let's go to spot culling. Yeah, it's getting my camera's getting difficult to do things. Anyway, as you can see, it's redder down the bottom than up the top, apparently, which is different to these other ones, which usually get, some of them, like this one here, which seems to be the best, seems to get really dark down the bottom. So the other ones get redder at the top, sort of thing. So there is a difference there. So I've set up another one over here, and we'll see if we can crack it sort of thing with some more cotton wool in there. See if that goes pink and then red, sort of thing. So on and so forth. Whereas with the sphagnum, it's green at the top, and you can barely see any red down the bottom, sort of thing. So you can get it in some sunlight here. If we're losing the sun, you can see that very green at the top and barely any, if any at all, down the bottom. So it might be a suggestion of sphagnum out, cotton wool in. And cotton wool is a plant that grows on the Atlantic coastal plain. That's where originally, I believe, it came from. So anyway, I don't know if that's going to fall off. Is it going to fall off? Okay, I want to take this up for discussions up here. So I was watching some video from some chap with an aquarium shop in, I think, London or somewhere in England anyway. He made a good who runs Biohome or something like that. He gave a good explanation about ammonia and nitrates, and he was saying that even though the ammonia and the nitrates have to keep them really low, they're very toxic, even low thing, you can get up to like 200 parts per million of the nitrate. But he was saying the nitrate or the nitrate digesting organisms are actually anaerobic, strictly anaerobic. And he said they've found a way of developing these microbes, even though in an aerated flowing system where they get these things flowing around, like a vortex sort of thing, they've got these Biohome pellets and chunks and stuff that they developed to actually get those strictly in quotes anaerobic organisms to actually grow in this stuff, even though they're floating around in an airy sort of system. It's a bit like Clostridium, which is a strictly anaerobic organism, can grow on a rusting nail, not on a rusty nail, but on a rusting nail. A rusting nail out in the environment is a strict anaerobic environment, even though it's in 20% oxygen and nearly 78% nitrogen, 2% different, I think, with other gases. So what I've set up here is I've set up this bucket with, go back to normal focus, I think. gone up to halfway with sand and halfway with charcoal down the bottom. So eventually, and from this jar here, I put a lump of charcoal in it, and I wetted it with boiling hot water, and it took 3 weeks, basically, 21 days to actually go. But when it's gone, and I don't. Oh, of course, now I'm off spot colour. You can't see that. Bugger. Let's go back to spot colour. Can you see that in the sunlight there? It's gone, and I'm assuming this will go in 3 weeks. Basically, it's had nearly 2 weeks now, I think. So at the end of this week, it'll be 2 weeks, so another week, and we might see something actually happening with the sand. With this one, it was looking quite good. Some of the plants were looking really good for quite a while, and suddenly they went downhill, and I found out what the problem was. I was scratching my head. There's ascariid midges, or the larvae of ascariid midges in the soil there, and they're chewing off the roots, basically. I did have a few cape cuttings, and they looked like they were going to slide. One down there, but they're attacking them as well, I think. This one, not too bad, but as I said, we're getting to the end of the season. This one's not too bad. But again, we're getting to the end of the season. I don't like these upright ones. But we do have some interesting stuff over here. Okay, so newspaper Celia on the top is not quite as good as with peat on the top. As you can see, it's starting to now look like it should have looked in October. And this one in here. But the surprise is this one here, with the newspaper sailors around the outside of the core, suddenly took off about 3 weeks ago. Suddenly we had these buds coming through, and it's divided into 2 plants in there, as you can probably see, and they're looking really healthy. It almost has a vigour and health that you're looking for, yet it's just sand and newspaper cellulose separated spatially. And I'm thinking this idea that you need an anaerobic compartment in the bottom of the pot sort of thing. That might be like the idea of the void pot sort of thing. So we're going to explore that, and probably one of the simplest ways you can do that is lumps of charcoal down the bottom. So the surprise of this season is basically these 2 pots are identical. It's just that the medium is flipped, and that's doing really badly. This one is starting to look really quite natural, and I put this cape in there. I lost one because I did some experiment. I put this one, it took about a week to settle down, and now it's approaching 3 weeks at the end of this one, and you can see it's starting to fatten up. The leaves are getting wider, and it's probably going to put down some roots soon. So I'm assuming that most of the nutrition is actually coming up from the soil to the plant, basically. So it begs the question, why are they carnivorous or anything? But as I said, it took a while. Basically, the sand has to be surfacted by whatever's down there, and that probably has to be in an anaerobic environment sort of thing. So I have to work on this. This one with the surfacted sand with the candles around the outside, they're all looking nice, but they're growing very slowly. I put 2 new ones in, and they also settle down quite nicely, but they're slow growing, but they do look natural, and so on and so forth sort of thing. So, and it's amazing how a little bit of water actually goes right through the pot, and you think the pot would dry out, but it doesn't. It's amazing in that way. So these ones are still chugging out the things, but nothing spectacular from the look. They've got a sort of natural look. They're continually growing. So as I said, there's more stuff there. This cape over here is finally settled down. This one here, Venus flytrap, is starting to come back again and do more stuff. So, as I said, it started off really well in that mix, and then it went through a quiescent state, and now it's coming out. We're getting a bit of colour on our weed in there. So, I'm going to set up some more pots. I'll probably do another clip with a bucket where I'm going to put polystyrene down the bottom and sand, sort of thing, because we know from our jars, which I'll show you, is the organism doesn't seem to grow into the polystyrene, but it seems to be able to grow on the outside of the polystyrene. So it can act in a way a bit like charcoal in a way. You can see those beads. If you take one out, I might be able to take one out, or I might be able to see it will grow in the cotton wool, and it will also grow on the outside of the bead. If you take a bead out, I don't know if I can take a bead out. Yeah, it's basically the same formula. I'll see if I can see one floating on the surface or something that I can show you. Oh yes, can you see there? Can you see the, if I put my hand down there, can you see the beads there? You can actually see the organism on the outside surface of those beads there. And so basically that should be what occurs in the bottom of a pot. So if I set up a bucket, if I take a bucket like this, I bought myself a new bag of, did I put a slit in one? Where's the bucket? I put a slit in the bucket somewhere. Jesus, where's it gone? I put a slit in a bucket somewhere, and I've lost the slitted bucket. Oh Jesus, hope someone hasn't pinched it. Oh, I can't understand that. Is it this one? Oh yes, it's a pink one. I thought it was green. So we've got a slotted bucket here, and I'm going to fill that halfway up with polystyrene. If you just bear with me, I'll get my bag of beans. I've got a new bag of beans, as you can probably see here. So they do blow around, so don't do this on a windy day sort of thing. And you can put those in I'll probably do another video of this, and you put them in halfway up, and then we're going to cover it with sand. You may have to put a bit of towel in there to stop the sand pushing the beads around while it settles down, but if you're very careful with a bit of damp sand, you might be able to cap the surface and then put the other sand in on top sort of thing. And hopefully we'll see a difference. We might see that the sand becomes surfacted just simply by having the, but as I said, from the charcoal, the time limit seems about 3 weeks, but hopefully with our nutrition we might be able to speed that up to like 4 days or something like that sort of thing. Get things going in about 4 days. But as I said, it's like chasing the dragon's tail, this stuff. You know, it's harder than you think. But we have come to this sort of strange idea that salt acts like zinc and zinc acts like salt. It's sort of like you can totally replace one with the other and not notice the difference, basically. So it makes you think, well, is there a salinity factor to zinc sort of thing? So zinc soils are like acting like salty soils sort of thing, and you've got to counter it with what you do with your salinity sort of thing for CP sort of thing. So like with like potassium amendment or something like that. So yeah, I mean, they're both colourless. They seem to be unreactive sort of thing, you know, sort of thing to a certain extent. You can see there are parallels. I mean, what about zinc hydroxide? Sodium hydroxide is extremely alkaline. What about zinc hydroxide? What is the pH of that? So yeah, we've messed around with zinc oxide, and we found that grows the organism. And we can also, and of course then that begs the question, what about chalk? We can grow the organism with the chalk as well, especially with the zinc there. So it's the problem with chalk. You can also view chalk like it's salt. Is that what the problem is? They don't like the chalk because they're seeing it as though it's salt or it's salty sort of thing. If you counteract for that salinity, that virtual salinity, yeah, Chimera twat, you know, virtual salinity, maybe you can solve the problem with chalk sort of thing. But I have done experiments in the past, and calcium chloride, you don't seem to have too many problems with calcium chloride. The trouble is it's very hard. You can't go from chalk to calcium chloride. You have to go from the carbonate to the chloride. You can go one way, but you can't go back the other usually, without spending probably a lot of energy. So you know, it's like a dead end cul-de-sac sort of that process sort of thing. But anyway, that's about that so far. I don't think there's much to report, but I said you'll probably be impressed by about April, I reckon. As I said, the eye-opening thing for this is point 1. You don't have to use peat, you can use newspaper cellulose. It's not quite as good as peat there, but when it's spatially orientated in the pot, it becomes better than peat. Do you see that? So you're using very cheap, takes the time to get going, but as I said, we might be able to speed that up. Now we've got some ideas of how things. Oh, by the way, here I had a Leuco out, and I got another Ruber up, so I think we're going to be doing more work on those, extending these ideas So basically, the point I want to get across is you don't want your 50-50 peat and sand. I think the idea when they're doing in these commercial places with their sand, with their gritty sand, is they're trying to maintain an anaerobic environment through the whole pot sort of thing, to get the anaerobic organism to grow through the pot. Unfortunately, you might get to a stage here is you get your problems with your midges and things like that. So the plants will look really good for a while and then they'll go downhill sort of thing. We want to separate it out where we get the bottom of the pot to surfact the sand and go from there sort of thing. So you might want to play around with putting, as I said, charcoal in the bottom, maybe charcoal and polystyrene. Because if you look up when we got the organism, it was from popcorn, wasn't it? Look up the amount of zinc that's in popcorn and look up zinc and maize plants. I think you'll be able to start connecting a few dots there. So, as I said, there's definitely something there to do with zinc. But we're getting the impression that zinc, in a way, acts a bit like salt, and salt acts a bit like zinc, and we've got to solve basically that sort of problem sort of thing. If we can solve for that, then we might be able to extend this straight away. Like after 4 days you start getting the organism growing in the pot and you start getting this sort of reaction grow. So from October you'll start getting this all the way through to now, if we can work out. As I said, I think you have to spatially separate them in the pot. So you have some charcoal down the bottom, maybe up the sides, but with a central core of sand, and the plant sits in the central core of sand, and that's how you're going to grow the plant. You can't actually, but having said that, from this sand one here, it doesn't seem to want to grow the organism in the sand, but that's not surfacted sand, that's just ordinary sand. Maybe we've got to do an experiment now where we take some surfacted sand and do it. Does the organism grow in the surfacted sand? So that's the question I want to do. So anyway, that's about this clip here. It was going to be like 3 or 4 or 5 clips, but I've connected it all down into about 18 minutes, I think, so it's a bit jiggly poop here, but anyway, we'll see how we go. I might do just a little clip trying to put the polystyrene in there on a slightly windless day and see how we go, putting some sand on top and see how we go and see how long it takes to surfact, if at all it will surfact. But we might get a few surprises yet again as we try and work out this dragon's tail business of getting this bloody organism to grow, because until we can get it to grow we can't even try turning it blue. So very hard indeed, but it's as again, it's 1 step forward, 2 steps back. So it seems to be that, but this idea that zinc acts like salt and salt acts like zinc, that might be the problem. We haven't really twigged with that. So is this organism a halophyte, and therefore